Hari Om Tat Sat. So, we had a discussion on the 14th Sutra, the formula for self realization in the Siva Sutras. And the formula read like this: Drishyam Shariram Bahyam Abhyantaram Vayat Drishyam Tat Sarvam Asya Aham Idamiti Swanga Kalpam Spurati Na Bhedena. So, this is the advanced yogi when goes on meditating. Aham Idam, Idam Aham. All that appears as thisness, this consciousness. And all that appears is I consciousness, aham. There is no duality between this. So there is a perceiver, there is a knower, and there is a knowable reality or an object of your perception. And they are appearing as different, but there is no difference as such. And we have had a long discussion on it. Sariram cha dehadhi prana shunya rupam niladhipat drishyam natu pashivad. And we had a very beautiful discussion. Like, for example, I am sick, I am healthy, I am fat. That is how the pashu here is not an animal. The pashu here is the person who is entrapped in samsara. Then he doesn't realize that there are two levels in which this happens. We have mentioned Drishyam Sariram, Sariram Drishyam. Two ways to interpret it. You have to sweep it once and then make sense of it. So all that you see is really me. And at the same time, this body that you have. So we have discussed how the principle of immanence and transcendence of consciousness. What is immanence? That you see and look at the whole world and you see yourself as present in everything. Because you are identifying with the whole samsara, and you know that pure consciousness is the founding consciousness. Like in Vedanta, we call it the Brahman. Here is the Chit Prakasha, that pure consciousness. So because the pure consciousness is the foundation for this whole reality, when you are established in that, you would be able to see this whole universe, Sarvam Vasudeva Miti, as Bhagavan says it, Bhagavad Gita. He is called Jnani among four kinds of devotees. Jnani, in the first comes the Artha, then Artharthi, then Jigyasu, ultimately Jnani, who are rare to find. And they have that Sarvatmaka Darshana, not different from whatever appears. These pictures are finally, they are standing on what? What is the foundation? That Bhagavan, God consciousness. These are projection on God consciousness. And once we identify with it, the foundation of whole universe and our consciousness is one, and therefore we are able to see whatever is happening is part of me. That's Sarvatmaka Bhava. And what is the second one? You have a physical body. How do you look at your physical body? You see your physical body also as a picture. This is the principle of transcendence. You're transcending the sensory level identification with your physical and psychological body-mind complex, with your mind, with your body, with your emotional self, with your intellectual self, with your physical self. The self becomes grand enough, and therefore you transcend any identification with these seeds, the panchokoshatitaha. That is what Atma is beyond all these koshas and seeds, in which it appears entrapped, and therefore we say, I'm not happy, I'm sad, I'm strong, I'm weak, all that. Annamaya kosha, then pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, depending on where we are talking, accordingly we have a certain narration of who we are and how that happens. We know about it. Now, having explained that, if we are actually able to do it, now he will mention the next step as to how the sadhaka has to kind of graduate to that level. And that is explaining in the next sutra, which is a very beautiful thing. How that happens, that would be your question. And that is what he's trying to answer in the next verse. How that's going to happen. That is the key thing. So he says, Hridaye chitta sanghatat. That is the sadhana part. How that happens. Hridaye chitta sanghatat. And here there are certain, that there is there are three kinds of malas and three kinds of also sadhanas. So at the top of it is sambhovapaya, meditation of the absolute consciousness. Then there is shaktopaya, where there is a bit of veda, and then there will be for the initial, the beginners, there'll be at the bottom of it. So that will be bhedatmaka. Like in the beginning, you do upashanas and you do karmakandas, where you have bhedatmaka vyavahara. I have to achieve this, I have to purify my mind. Then in the middle, you are doing upasana, you're trying to identify with it. We are trying to identify with the Supreme God consciousness. But ultimately, you are no different from that God consciousness. That is the Sambhovapaya. Here, there is a hint of the Shaktopaya in the beginning. Hridaya Chitta Sanghatat. And if we are able to do it, what fructifies out of it? What becomes the key consequence of it? The phala is Drishya Swapadarsanam. Now, this is the powerful thing where he's hinting at the Avhedatmaka Drishti. Now, Hridaya Chitta Sanghatat. So, at least one thing is clear, there is a Hridaya. And then meditating, having a unified consciousness, having a one-pointed mind. Do you see there's a bit of a duality there? But then again, non-duality arises out of it. How does that happen? Drishya Swapa Darshanam. Everything becomes one. The Sariram Drishyam Drishyam Sariram. That's we did it here in the verse number, the sutra number 14. Now he's saying, all that you see, aham idam, I consciousness and this consciousness, ultimately you have that kind of non-duality. That is saying Swapa Darshana. What is Drishyatmaka Darshana? Where there is a person who perceives and there is something to be perceived. There is a sadhaka to look at an external world. By external world, I would say whatever can be put in the category of prameya, whatever can be put in the category of what can be perceived. So you can be sthula, external object, or you can have shukshma, your gross or subtle objects of perception. That's one. But there is a state, there is actually none of these. Okay, what is that? In the non-dual state, when does that happen? When we are in deep sleep. There is nothing. So you have the waking state and dream state. Both will have drik, there is a drashta and there is a drishya. There is a perceiver, the drashta, and there is drishya, what is being perceived. It could be a dream. And then interesting thing is that there is also a deep sleep state where everything is kind of jumbled in one, that absence thing, that shunyatmaka. There's a voidness which is experienced. And he's saying all of these are not different. They are all not different anymore from that pure God consciousness. Then that fellow is kind of firmly established there. The first word, Hridaya, what does that mean? Hridaya is not the physical heart. Absolutely not. And how he's going to explain that is putting it like this. Hridaya is that Chit Prakasha, that original consciousness, the God consciousness. And that original God consciousness, how do I describe it in Advaita Vedanta or Saivism? That is the founding reality behind all existence. What is all existence? Whatever is born, whatever grows up, whatever stabilizes, undergoes changes, smiles, laughs, cries, sleeps, wakes up, everything, all existence, subtle or external. gross or subtle. It could be a dream state, it could be externally what's available. All that exists, there is a founding reality, and that is behind all this, and that is Chit Prakasha. That is the Hridaya. That is the foundation of all that happens. And when you establish yourself in that foundation, which sustains, which is the cause of their appearance, the cause of their sustenance, and the cause of their disappearance. That pure consciousness, when you are able to chitta sanghatat, when you have that ultimate one-pointedness in that pure consciousness, which is Paramashiva consciousness, okay, then what happens is explaining Drishya Shwapa Darshanam. Let's look at how the commentators are explaining it. Let's first look at the easiest one. Samagrasya Drishya Vastunaha. All that Drishya Vastu, subtle or gross, Sthula or Shukshma, waking state or dream state. Sharira Rupena Tatha Sarirasya Drishyataya. That I am everything, and my body, I'm above that body. My body is also a small object. It's like a film I'm watching. You look at your own life as a film that you're watching. That means principle of transcendence. You are participating in an event, but you are above it. And the pet example I always give is the grandma apparently participating in a game of her grandchildren. She isn't playing with them. She's sitting there watching. She's participating in it, but she doesn't become a child. She's udasina vadasina vidin. She's transcendent. At the same time, she's there. Shariro rupena sarirasya drishyataya pashyataha mahayoginaha na etat durghatam. Now he's saying what I'm going to talk about is not difficult to achieve, that one-pointed mind and that particular complete dissolution in that pure consciousness. Apitu hridaye chitta sangatat drishya swapa darshanam. However, this is possible. There is a unity which is achieved. Now he's explaining. Hridayam hi vishwasya adharatmakam sadavastu asti iti gheyam. What is sadavastu? Asti iti, isness. You remember that powerful shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, Nasato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sata, na asataha vidyate bhava. You cannot talk about existence of something which is fundamentally not real. It doesn't exist. Na bhavo, na abhavo vidyate sataha. What is fundamentally real can ever be absent. There could be no non-existence of it. That is the verse number 16 of the second chapter. That is saying, what is that sadavastu? Asti iti jnayam, isness. There's a pot, there's a house, there's a man, there's a woman. What's common to all of this? Shankaracharya explains that is asti. That is the sadavastu. Ghata sun, pata sun. He explains it there. Hridam cha vishwasya adharatmakam. That is the foundation. So isness is there. Then you are attaching a pen and a pencil. There is a pencil, there's a pen, there's a house, there's a car, there's a girl, there's a boy. There is. That is the fundamental truth. The vyabhichari part is all these words we add. They keep changing. The is word doesn't change. Ityuktaritya hridayasya vishwa vishranti sthanam. Whole universe appears, sustains, and disappears in that. Gyamyate. Yadyapi chittasya swabhava atichanchalyena yuktaha. But the mind jumps around. You're saying, how can you have chitta sanghata? How can you unify it there, dissolve it there, resolve it there? How does it work out? He said, no, I recognize the mind is by nature like a monkey. It jumps around. However, tathapi chitta, tathapi sthirata sampadana udyama dwara. Look at this word. Sthirata sampadana. By nature is not sthira, but we have to do sampadana of that one-pointedness. And how does that happen? When you strive for it. Udyama dwara. So by way of striving to establish the mind at a single point, what happens? Tasya nigraham kritva. What you say? Shama, mano nigraham. So you have nigraha means it's no anymore externally distracted. Apitu, it's completely one-pointed. Kritva. Parama Shiva Shorupata. Parama Shiva Shorupata. That my Shorupa is no different from Parama Shiva. Like, for example, in Advaita Vedanta, we say Siddhoham, Shivoham, Nityoham, Shuddhoham. That is our Shorupa. Swabhava is different because it's a contextual appearance of that Parama Shiva Tattva, that Paramatma Tattva. Parama Shiva, Shorupa, Shorupata, Paramasha Prayukta. When you meditate on this fundamental truth about your essential nature, your essential Shorupa, what is essential to you? That you are actually Nitya, Suddha, Buddha, Mukta, Swabhavaha. That's what Advaita Vedanta has taught us. And by meditating on that, Paramasha Prayukta, Jaguruka Swabhavata Jayate. That kind of an alertness, you are going to attain and accomplish that consciousness where effortlessly you will be able to resolve your mind in that Hridakasha, that founding consciousness on which everything else is a projection. Evam cha, and then apurna sampurna prapanchatmaka vishwadrishyasya. What is the Vishya and its Drishya, this whole sansara, Prapanchatmaka, which created, it moves around, the Srishti Vaichitrya. Prapanchatmaka Vishwa Drishyasya, which is like a picture, it's a film. It's like a, as they say, it's like a self-playing video player, it's creating something. Swasarira Swarupatva Darshanena. Swasarira Twa Swarupa. This sansara is not different from who you are. Look at that. Drishyam Shariram. By here, this Sarira is referring to that I consciousness. Whatever you see outside of yourself is not different from you. That is explained by the word Swaswarupa Rupa Twa Darsanena. Not different from me when you have that kind of thing. Tadrishtya. And that Atmavritya, when you have that, Sarvatma Jnana, Sarvatma Darshana, then Tad Drishtya, by that way of looking at it, Tad Abhavaha. Abhava what? Prapancha Abhavaha. Prapancha is separate from you, a reality is separate from you, that duality is gone. Tad Abhava means that Vedatmaka Vritti Abhavaha. Because there is no prapancha to be seen and you are no different from it. Sampadyate arthat, and what does it mean? Swasharirad atiriktam tad astitvam eva vinashyati. There is nothing outside of you which is real. The moment you accept anything as real outside of you, there is dvaitapatti. There is duality, fear of duality. Why duality is so frightening? Because when we have dualities, we have fear, we have anxieties. What's going to happen to me? Life is very difficult. People are against me. You have all kinds of issues coming and attacking you, disturbing you, making you anxious. And that's what he's saying. Tad astitvam eva vinashyati. That there is a world or a universe which is so difficult, I have to manage myself. That fear is gone. That whole universe is gone. Sakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwa Sangharaha. Earlier we have done it. When you try to understand it, this whole sansara becomes arthahina. They don't frighten you anymore. You are able to see through them. That's what he's explaining. Sarvam sunyatmakam jayate rahasyam. Rahasyamiti. So you say that everything is void. There's nothing real about this whole picture. Ateva swanga bhuteshu bhaveshu yohi pramata vidyati sa eva tesam patihi. Now, what is the Swanga Bhuta? Everything is Swa Anga Bhuta. Everything is part of me. And he will give a beautiful example there when we look at the Siva Sutra Vimarshani. Now, the one good, clear example for this would be when we are able to see a dream, what happens? In the dream, imagine that there's some kind of a sport going on and you're playing with animals, and there's a tiger. The tiger is playing with you, attacking you. You're playing hide and seek. But remember, it's a dream in which the tiger is attacking you. And there is a referee. There's a fight between you and the tiger. There's a referee. And there are people clapping. The tiger, you, the referee, and the whole Colosseum when it's happening, people clapping, the noise, the sky, earth, they are all you. They aren't different from you. It's only you appearing as the sky, as the big clock over there, people clapping, anxious people, frightened kids, the lion, you, your destiny, everything is you. It's one thing which appears as split into so many images, so many objects of perception. Here, the perceived, that is the object of perception, and the perceiver, they are essentially one in the dream state. So there is a abhasha, as if there is a separate reality from you, but you are in your bedroom, everything is happening within you. That is what he's actually explaining, that Swanga Bhuteshu Bhaveshu Yohi Pramata Vidyate Sa Evam Tesham Patihi. Who is the king of the show in which you are playing a match? You are two wrestlers, you and a lion or a tiger. You are the boss. When you wake up from sleep, this whole show is going to come to an end. So that's what he's saying, Pramada Vidyate Sa Eva Tesham Patihi. The person who is perceiver is fundamental to this whole show. And he is the boss of this whole show, because when he wakes up, the dream ends. It's because of his own sanskaras, his vasanas, that this dream is appearing in him. And then he's saying, Pratyavigya Darshana Saranim Anusritya, following the Pratyavigya Darshana, Abhinava Gupta Mahapada is mentioning Parama Shiva Atma Prabhu Patireva Bhavati. That Parama Shiva Atma, that is the Supreme God Consciousness, he is the boss of everything that happens. Yad Ahu Acharya Utpalapada. Utpalapada says, what does he say? Esha Pramata Mayandha Sansari Karma Bandhanaha. Pramata is one. The perceiving consciousness, the Drik Chaitanya, is essentially one. When he is Mayandha, now a person he's a sharp shooter. He has a gun in his hands. But he's blindfolded. He has a gun. The rule is that he's blindfolded. Can he kill anyone? He'll be shooting into the air. Allow him to see. They're going to shoot rightly. He's one of the best shooters. Now, he's helpless because he's blindfolded. Similarly, that pramata, which is no different from the Supreme Shiva consciousness, when he's blindfolded, why are we blindfolded? We are blindfolded because of karma bandhana. We are bound up by our karmas. And why so? We are blinded by the power of Maya. That's a kind of spectacles through which we see the reality, which looks overturned. The rope looks like a snake. This whole samsara looks fundamentally very attractive. And we forget our Swarupa. We don't seek to raise ourselves to the next higher level. Vidya Vigyapite Sharya Chidghano Mukta Uchyate. And at the same time, when he has the well of this particular thing, he remembers who he is, he recovers himself. Then what happens? He becomes Muktaha Uchyate. Then he is liberated. He's no more that. It's like a person who is intoxicated. In a person, it happens on the Holi in Eastern India, also Northern India. So they consume a bit of bhang. Mind stops working at the optimal level. Just imagine a college hostel. There's a boy who has taken a little bhang, is an innocent guy, force-fed a bit of bhang as part of sarvat. Then people go and convince him, do you know, by mistake, you hit somebody, he has died, police is looking for you. And the poor guy goes and hides below the cot. And they're all having great fun. But he's saying, please don't move. The police is around, is going to arrest you. It happens in hostels. Everybody is having a great fun over there. Until the person slowly realizes the level of his intoxication recedes and he realizes that they made a big fool of me. All the kinds of fun also happens. When that intoxication gives way to pure consciousness, the right kind of consciousness, suitable for the waking state, then he's no more scared. You can't cheat him anymore. Now that fear that he's a criminal, that state of whatever crime, as if he has committed anything wrong, he's a sinner, he should save himself, all that is imagined. And it's because of intoxication. Similarly, in samsara, our fears and your moments of joy and sorrow and happiness and all that, which are changing in nature, which are disturbing us, is because of that intoxication imposed on us by Maya. And the Maya is our own invention. Because of the game of the Paramashiva, we have accepted how this works, and that becomes our destiny. Once we have the Shaktopaya, we try to concentrate our mind, starting from the verse Udyama Bhairava, we have come this far. Once we again return to that moment of unity with the perceiver, then we are back to the central point of our essential nature, that we are pure consciousness. Therefore, we are no more troubled. Couple of more sentences you mentioned here. Swanga rupeshu bhaveshu pramata kathyate patihi. That pramata, the one who is seeing prameya and a pramana, and there is a pramata. That particular thing will come in a different, there will be a Siva Sutra Vimarshani, Kshemaraja will mention that you have these two lotuses, and in between the pramata stands, the self stands in between pramana and prameya, the process of knowing and what is being known, who is holding them, connecting them, is the pramata. Once you are in that particular pramata, the self, then it's easy. The swanga rupeshu bhaveshu pramata kathyate pati is the boss. Mayatah vedeshu klesha karamadi kalusha pashu. Mayatah, as a result of mayato, as a result of this maya, game of maya, then what happens to Vedishu? All these dualities, these are the Vedis. Klesha karamadi kalusha. What are these Vedis? Veda, duality, and which appear in multiple, all these objects of perception which are in multiples. These are the Vedis. There is a distinction between this pen and this pencil, this highlighter and this pencil. There is a difference between them. There is a Bheda between this and that. Who are the Vedis? This is a Vedi, this is a Vedi. And this whole samsara, each one object of perception is one Vedi. Amongst all this, Klesha Karma Adi Kalusha, we are one of them, trapped in it. Klesha Karma Adi Kalusha. These impurities are in there. What are these Pancha Kleshas? And what are these? Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha, Avinivesha. All these are 5 kleshas. And what else? You also have a karma. You have papa karma, punya karma, mishra karma, all these kinds of adi. You can take all other things. Adi kalusha. These are the impurities. Why? The kleshas and the karmas are as a result of your entrapment in this body-mind complex, where you're trying to be better, you think you are not good enough. There are dualities, there are points of struggle, there are anxieties about success and failure and all that. And that's what he mentions and says. All these are possible because of that. And you become a pashu. That means maya andaha pashu. You are blinded by maya and therefore you are a pashu. Pashu is not animal. Pashu is pasavadha, who is kind of, his hands are tied. You are handcuffed. Handcuffed by what? Our incorrect understanding of who we are. That is what makes us a Pashu, and we have correct. You are Pati, you are Shiva. So between Parama Shiva and Pashutva, this journey of the consciousness from, in Hegel's language, knowing nothing and absolute knowledge, or from ignorance, so Asodoma Sadagamaya, right? So Asodoma Sadagamaya is what he's saying. From darkness to light, from untruth to truth, from falsehood to truth. That's what he's mentioning here. Kintu parityakta grahya grahaka bhava vibhedena. Grahya and a grahaka. What is grahya? Grahya is what is perceived, pramaya. Who is grahaka? The pramata. In the dream, the pramata is appearing as pramaya. The perceiver is appearing as perceived, the objects of his own dream. He is seeing his own creation as different from itself. And then he's scared that this lion is going to kill me. He has nightmares. The nightmare is our own creation. Nightmare is not outside of it because there is no one in the room. You are sleeping alone and you have a nightmare. So who is the father of that nightmare? It's you. It's you who have created the nightmare using the memory and experiences in your waking state or previous dream states, maybe past lives. There is some sort of a constellation of some of your vasanas, some of your hidden sanskaras, and the cocktail is that nightmare. And you are seeing that, and then you are getting scared, or you are seeing a wonderful dream where people are declaring you, for example, as king, you have been coronated somewhere, or you have won a great award or recognition. All this is essentially a cocktail of your some sanskaras and some vasanas. And that's what you experience in the dream state. And then that's what he's saying. Grahya grahaka bhava vibhedena yathavastu swanga kalpatvena prakashanam bhavati. It's part of you. And then you realize and you have, oh my God, it's all my creation. Then take it to the waking state, take it to the dream state, and you will have that unity because there's nothing outside of the perceiver. Yatohi, why so? Chit prakashamanam, chit prakashamanatam, avinivishamanam chittam yada. Chit prakasha, that particular hridaya word that we are mentioning, that God consciousness is the founding reality on which all realities appear. Avinivishamanam chitta yada. Avinnam eva vishwa prapancham. You realizes that the vishwa prapancha which appears on that God consciousness, this is the foundation, cannot be different from that. The snake which appears, which is fundamentally delusional, cannot have a separate independent existence vis-a-vis the rope. It's the rope which appears as a snake. When you start seeing the rope, where did the snake go? No, it was the rope. There was no snake. That's what he's saying. Avinnam eva vishwa prapancham avalokayati tatha cha uktam vijnana bhairave. And it appears in Vijnana Bhairava. What appears? Hridakase nilinakshaha. In the Hridakasha. And because this particular thing will also come in the the Siva Sutra Vimarshini of Kshemaraja. We will get into in more detail when we are doing that. Hridakase nilina aksha. So you know what? When you meditate, what happens? Nilina. When you close your eyes, you turn inward. You're not looking at the external reality. Padma Sampura Madhyagaha, and you are sort of established between this I-ness and thisness, between the pramana and the prameya, that particular thing which is in the middle. You are deeply there. Ananya chetaha, Ananya chetaha, it's only there. You are not anymore attentive to, aware of, relating to anything outside of yourself. Ananya chetaha, suvage. This is addressed to Ma Parvati. Lord Shiva is saying this. And what does he say? Varam sobhagyatam, so varam sobhagyam apniyat. He gets the ultimate happiness, richness of self-awareness. This is a good commentary, and we'll also have a quick look at the Siva Sutra Vimarshani commentary. So, according to Siva Sutra, so that word Hridaya is always Chit Prakasha. You can say the core of consciousness, you can say the God consciousness, whatever. Or more accurately, the founding reality, that consciousness which is the founding reality on us, on that on which all other pictures, all other existence is superimposed. In Advaita Vedanta language, all realities appear and disappear in that Brahman. Here is the Paramashiva. Chitta Sangatat means here union of the mind. And Drishya Swapa Darshanam, there is an appearance of some kind of a perceivable phenomenon. And there's a state of void in the deep slate. Drishya Swapa Darshanam. So after that he's saying, Atra eva upayantaramaha. So in the verse number 14th, we discuss about Drishyam Shariram. That is also one sadhana upaya, one way of meditation. You will meditate that the whole sansara is you, and that you are just a picture. First, you will try to meditate on the principle of immanence, where you are Sarva Vyapaka, no different from Brahman, no different from Paramashiva. Okay? But what about your body-mind complex, which is chasing you? You say, okay, this is just a picture. So you are seeing your Swarupa as that founding reality which creates, sustains, and destroys this whole picturesque world. And then when the mind at all has to deal with your body-mind complex, you see this just an image. That's one sadhana. The second one is this. Once you reach there, Drishya Swapa Darshanam, you are absolutely you are not affected. That is what he's trying to say. Yacha idam sarvasya drishyasya sarirateya sunyantasya cha drishyataya. Yacha idam sarvasya drishyasya. All of that is visible. Sarirataya, drishyam shariram. That is what we did in the previous verse. Sunyantasya va drishyataya. Whatever ends in void, the three states, waking, dream, and that deep sleep state. Sadrishyataya, it's one. That means you are above this. You are not your waking state, you are not your dream state, and you are not your deep sleep state. Eka rupam prakashanam uktam na etad durgatam. What is mentioned? Oh, this is not difficult. Why? Apitu, however, Vishwa pratishthanatvat. This particular thing, that Chit Prakasha, where you are meditating, that is the foundation of this whole sansara. Adhishthanatvat. Chit Prakasha hridayam. That Chit Prakasha is Hridaya Rupa. Tatra Chit Sanghatat. Because you are able to resolve your mind there. Chit would be mind. That is the sadhana part. That is the vehicle. End of the day, whatever you're doing is a satsang or meditation or upasana, by using a Vijnanamaya kosha and Manomaya kosha mostly, a Pranamaya kosha to pranayamas. And for doing all kinds of asanas, you're using a Annamaya kosha. And then a bit of exercises and all, you're using a Pranamaya kosha. And these are seeds for doing sadhana. And then we are trying to ultimately reach there. Chitta Sanghatat Chalataha Tad Ekagra Bhavana Drishyasya. Beginning it, of course, there's a bit of it has fickle nature. And finally, when you are able to establish there, Nila Deha Prana Buddhyat Manaha, like for example, you said this is blue color, this is body, this is mind, this is my breath, anything. And Buddhyat Manaha, that is the adjective of Drishya. That means whatever you see, it's like that. Swapasya cha, in deep sleep. Etad abhav rupasya shunyasya. That deep sleep is the absence of this drishyata. Because in deep sleep there is no drishya. There is a voidness. Aham aswapsam nakinchid avedisham. I had a very good sleep. I don't know anything. I didn't say anything. But I had a good sleep. You have experienced it. After you're waking up, you're able to remember it. That means there was something that you saw. So you are not liberated. You don't have that Atma Jnana. You experience something. The experiencer is there. Then what does he say? Darshanam. Tyakta grahya grahaka vibhedena yathavastu swanga kalpataya prakashanam bhavati. The way that we have already discussed this, and the same thing is mentioning is. So all that swapasya, that of that void, absence of every objective phenomenon in the deep sleep state, what happens? Drishyasya is, like of the, as you mentioned, Nila Deha Prana and Buddhi, Buddhyatmanaha. That is the adjective of the word Drishya. You see, that is how it is defined. Appearance, color, all kinds of qualities you attributed. It has a physical form. There is a movement. It's conscious or unconscious. All that you see. Swapasya, the other one is slightly one step further. That voidness in deep sleep, absence of any objective activity, any phenomenon. Darshanam, that means you appearance of everything. In essential reality, is devoid of the distinction between subject and object. Pramata and prameya, that doesn't exist at all. Okay? Therefore, the summary of this sutra that we did essentially means very simple, that when that mind turns to God consciousness, he no more sees any distinction between any subtle external or gross external and whatever is even subtle internal or the absence of it in the deep sleep. They're essentially one, no different from the perceiver, the pure consciousness. So you now turn to that universal light, which is Shiva consciousness. That is the foundational or the founding reality, the founding consciousness. And entire universe has no independent existence from that. Taduktam Vijnana Bhairave, that is mentioned in Vijnana Bhairava. That is what we discussed there. Siddhyakashe, Nilinaksha, Padma Sampura Madhyagaha, Anyanya Chetaha Subhage, Param Sobhagyam Apnuyat. That is what he's saying, that when the mind with his senses is verily established there, is merged there, Hridakasha, the void of the heart, is established there. And he's talking about Padma Sampura Madhyagaha. What are these? Two bowls of these heart lotuses, whatever you say it. That the pramana and a prameya. The self is in between. The process of perception and the perceiver remains in the middle of the prameya, whatever is perceived. When he's established there, Ananya Chetaha Shuhage, then he's absolutely moving away from it. Everything is consciousness. And that is the highest fortune. That is the highest peak of his sadhana. To reach me, he reaches there. When he snaps the distinction between the pramata and prameya, snaps that distinction between subject and object, and the states of consciousness, waking, dream, deep sleep. He doesn't see them as different from himself. It's a very sharp, insightful statement, very difficult to comprehend if we are trying to look for an example in our everyday lives. Because this relates to a very high level of sadhana, and therefore it's not very easy to make sense of. And then, therefore, he's saying, Parami atra sobhagyam Vishvesharata Pattihi. What is that Sobhagya? What is that blissful existence that he attains? He's saying, look, Vishvesharata Pattihi is verily like Vishveshara, as if he's the transcendent boss of this whole universe, the Paramashiva Tattva. Tattva Vritti Samapannam Mahayoginam Uddeshya. Tattva Vritti. Vrittis are of different kinds. You have Vishaya Vrittis. This is a beautiful house. I want to stay there. That's a lovely tourist destination. My next holiday is going to be there. That person is not very good. I need to avoid him. This is a nice guy. An interaction with him or her is going to be meaningful. These are statements. And why do we make these statements? We have Vishaya Vrittis. You have Vishaya Sanyoga, connection with the help of our Indriyas. The Manas, which is the internal sense organ, or the 5 sense organs, or with the Karma Indriyas. You want to shake hands, you want to go somewhere, take a walk. You use your Karma Indriyas, the axon organs or the sense organs. These are Vishaya Vritti, Vrityatmaka. What about Tattva Vritti? Tattva Vritti, what is that Tat? Tat is Parama Shiva. Tat is Brahman. Tattva Vritti, when the mind is meditating. Tattva Vritti, Samapannam, it's transforming itself to attain that Tattva, identify with it, dissolve into that Tattva. Mahayoginam Uddeshya, and he's directing his attention, the writer, on that sort of a very high aspirant. What does he say? Srimad Swachandepi, in Swachandra Tantra, the author says, Sacha Sarveshu Bhuteshu, and that's sadhaka, who has kind of realized his identity with the highest reality, that Parama Tattva, that Parama Shiva Tattva. What he mentioned, Udyama Bhairava. We are discussing this whole Tantra is Bhairava Tantra, contemplative, Vicharatmaka. Not apitu with a lot of rituals. No. It's ahead of that, much beyond that. Reality. Then these 2 aspects. And then there is, this Sadodvas, Varna, Pada Mantra, Kala Tattva, Bhuvana. All these will come as we move forward. And what he says that Saja Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhava Tattvendriyeshu Cha Sthavaram Jangam Jeva Chetana Chetanam Stitam Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Everything we see around. Bhava Tattvendriyeshu Cha. All that we see around us. Sthavaram Jangamam. Something moves or doesn't move. Chetana Chetanam Stiram. You have so-called Chetana. Everything is consciousness. There is nothing possible to see as happening outside and independent of the consciousness. So in that sense, consciousness is everywhere. We have a kind of panpsychism kind of a model. There's consciousness everywhere. I'm sorry for using that word. It has its own connotations, but I'm just using it to drive home the point that consciousness is kind of all pervading. And there and then I'm saying something. What is that? That is most important. That he's saying Chetanam Achetanam Cha. But within this understanding that everything is consciousness, we nevertheless distinguish between what is animate, what is inanimate, what is conscious, which is unconscious, a piece of stone and a cat, a human and a tree, if a plant kingdom and an animal kingdom, and then you put plant and animal kingdom in one domain, and then you distinguish them from the rivers and the mountains and earth and all inanimate objects. And they don't have life of their own. So the living and the non-living. So Chetanam Achetanam Sthitam Adhvanam Vapya Sarvatu Samarashyena Sangsthitaha. It goes to all these, all that they are appearing. And he says, oh, I am everything. All that appears as separate things, I am everything. Spandetu, in Spandakarika, he's saying, Yatha Swatmani Adhishtanada Sarvatra Evam Bhavishyasi Bhavishyati. In Spandakarika, he says, in chapter 3, the verse number 7. When that spanda principle, that foundational truth, is realized, it pervades the body. All our knowledge and action, okay, which is appropriate to that kind of a vibration, to that condition, that's possible, that happens. So when we abide in our real self, Hridakasha, when you have concentration of the mind, then he's saying that follows omniscience. That means we are alpagya. By approximating and transforming our consciousness and resolving it in the heart center. Heart center is not in the Kundalini yoga thing, not in the yoga sense, but in the philosophical Advaita Vedanta, Shiva Advaita, the Kashmiri Saivism sense that we're discussing right now. When you abide there through vichara, through proper meditation, not meditation by closing the eyes and breathing regularly, no. It's much different. It's vicharatmaka, it's contemplative, vimarshatmaka. When you reach there, you can see yourself is no different. We have done it before, that even if you are everywhere, more or less, you can experience the same thing. That is how kind of it. There are a couple of other things, interesting things, that we will look at it before we go to the next verse. But broadly, that there is a foundational central consciousness. That is the Chidakasha, Chit, the universal consciousness. And that is the core of the reality that we see, talk about. And when you are investing all your attention there, then whether it's a subtle internal reality or external reality or the absence of reality in the deep sleep state, all of it are no different from that pure consciousness. So the individual consciousness, Sariram Drishyam, Drishyam Shariram, that individual consciousness then is steeped in that universal consciousness. And the Drishya and Drik Drishya Viveka. So that Viveka, these are different. He's saying no, Drishya and Drik, they become one. He's saying the difference disappears and therefore there's nothing. So the practice of achieving a state of destruction, annihilation of that duality. This is a sadhana of annihilating the dualities, which separate us from what we see, separate us from what we connect. So you have that sarvatmaka bhava. Once you are there, like for example, in the peacock's egg, it's only yellow color, some liquid is there. Out of which those whole peacock materializes. Similarly, from that non-differentiated consciousness, this whole universe appears. Once we realize it, the diversity of the samsara doesn't frighten us. And then we are able to resolve our mind in that unified consciousness. You know, the Kashmiri Saivism is very challenging because much of it is written in very cryptic language. Even if we read and make sense of it, it requires a lot of contemplation to be able to connect with the inner truths, which are kind of explained or hinted by these sutras. So as we move forward, and if you find time, I had shared that Jaidev Singh book and you read, that's very simple, little difficult once in a while, but there is I am also following it so that when you read it, you can also make sense of it. And then the Sanskrit commentaries you are doing, then as we progress, it will become easier and easier. So when we meet tomorrow, before we go to the sutra, a couple of other things that remains that we'll discuss and move forward. Any question? If you have, you can ask. We have a couple of minutes to go. Any questions you have? Any one of you? No? Okay. So we can do the Shanti mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamadaya
Purnameva
Purnameva Vasisyate.
Om
Om Shanti
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 Shri Gurubhyo
Gurubhyo
Namaha
Namaha
Om Tatsat.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
See you tomorrow. Have a very good day.
Pranam.